Hi, and welcome back to this month's episode of The Skin Check. The Skin Check with Jenn is a monthly segment hosted by me, Jenn Schultz, as an opportunity for me to interview other L.U.V ambassadors and other skincare advocates so they have a platform to share their story, offer advice, and show support for others. So today I'm really excited to introduce you to Melissa. Melissa is one of Low Ultraviolet's newest ambassadors, and I personally was also super excited when I learned that she was from Wisconsin. So even though I now live in Minnesota, I was born and raised in Wisconsin, which I think is also just a really great reminder that melanoma doesn't just occur in warm weather states. You can just as easily get it in the Midwest as well. So Melissa is a mom, a daughter, she's a teacher, she's a rescue dog mom, which I love. She's an advocate and a caregiver. Melissa has very vulnerably shared her melanoma story, and more recently, the impact of her mom now facing a serious cancer diagnosis too. So Melissa, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here with me today. And if I can just have you in your own words, share a little bit more about who you are before we dive a little bit deeper into your story.
Yeah, thanks, Jen, for having me. It's an honor to be here and share my story with this community. I love this podcast, so it's an honor to be here. I'm Melissa. I am from a small town in Wisconsin, right on Lake Michigan. So you usually see me at the lake or in the woods. I just love being outside. Uh, I am a mom to the most amazing 5-year-old daughter. She's my world. My rescue dog is 8. He's my fur baby. I love him to pieces. Uh, I currently teach 3K through 8th grade Spanish, which makes for very interesting days, but I love it. Teaching is just my passion. I love it. I'm a 5-year melanoma survivor. Just within the last couple of years have begun to do a little bit of the mental healing and jump into the advocacy. So that's why I'm here. And I'm also currently a caregiver for my mom, who is fighting colorectal cancer. So yeah, life is crazy, but it's something good is going to come out of it. I just know it. So here I
Yeah,
am.
no, and with all that going on, I do thank you so much for being here. And it can be really tough to talk about, but I also think that you have a really unique story that's important to hear. And also, like, I just need to share since we touched on it. So, all of your outdoor walks and all the things when you're out in nature and you're sharing those on your Instagram stories, like it's very healing for others to watch too. So I love that you share those. And I feel like the healing journey, even when we get to a place where we feel more healed, I don't think the healing journey ever really truly ends. It's an ongoing thing. But
No,
as
it
I
doesn't.
yeah, definitely. It's a little bit like, well, I've heard they're like the crayon scribble where the healing journey basically looks like a kindergartner scribbled on a piece of paper. It's definitely not a linear straight line, but I also think it's a little bit like the roller coaster. There's a lot of ups and downs and ebbs and flows. But as
Right.
I
And
mentioned,
especially now, like as I'm going through this journey with my mom, who was going through cancer when I had cancer. So this is actually her third battle, and just it brings up a whole slew of emotions. So yeah, I'm a mess. Definitely
it
crayon scribbles here.
it does. It brings up a lot of emotions. And I think once you've gone through cancer yourself and then to watch somebody that you care about go through it, similar to you, I've had the experience where I've watched people go through cancer before I had my own diagnosis. And I've watched people go through cancer that I really care about. And it's such a different outlook. And you feel just as deeply for what they're going through, but you relate to it so differently, which causes a lot of other complicated emotions too, because it triggers a lot of our own stuff also. but
Yeah.
I know we're going to touch on that a little bit later. So I want to start a little bit with how we got here. Even after you first noticed your mole that ended up being melanoma, you weren't really worried. You have a lot of moles. I do as well. And actually, you saw two different doctors who had told you that they weren't concerned. So when did you first notice the mole? And then how long after you noticed it before you were diagnosed?
So I don't remember when exactly I noticed it, but I know that I had it in 2015. Um, and it started out as just a small little speck above my lip. Um, and it looked like all my other moles. It was completely normal. And like you said, I have moles everywhere. I'm very freckly. I'm Irish. Like, I thought nothing of it. And over time, like, it got a little bit bigger, but I just, at that time, I was naive and I didn't know about the ABCDEs. And I just thought that's what moles do. That's what my skin does. Whatever. I just dealt with it. And then in 2017, when I was pregnant with my daughter, it started to grow more very quickly. And it wasn't flat anymore. It was a massive lump. Um, it started to actually hang over my lip. So it started interfering with activities like eating, kissing my husband. Uh, and it started to crack and it started to bleed and it hurt. And I was like, what is going on? And so I asked my primary, and she's like, oh, it's just dry. Put Vaseline on it. You'll be fine. And so that's what I did. I went home and I put Vaseline on it, but it didn't get better. It got bigger. The bleeding became more frequent. It hurt. It was just so sensitive and so friable. And in fall of 2017, like getting towards like the latter part of my pregnancy, it was just so bad. And I asked my OBGYN about it, like, do you have any idea what's going on? And she's like, well, you're pregnant. Your hormones are just going crazy. And, things like this can happen. And there is this thing she showed me, like, that things could pop up and they like disappear. And she's like, after you're done being pregnant, it'll be gone. It'll be fine. I'm like, okay. And she's like, well, if it really bothers you, we can remove it. I'll send you to a surgeon. They can take it off. And so she sent me to a cosmetic surgeon, had a consult. Uh, we scheduled the surgery for January. And they said it was just going to be a simple procedure. Like, they'll just cut it out. It'll be like it was never there. Well, my daughter came early by a couple weeks. And so my surgery was pushed back by 2 weeks. So February 15th of 2018, I finally went in for my surgery. Simple procedure. Just cut it out. They'll be like it was nothing there. And the surgeon, he thought nothing of it. But he said, well, you know what? What the heck? We'll send it into pathology. They'll do a biopsy. But you're fine. A week later, I went in for my follow-up. And I had nobody to watch my daughter. So she was with me, my 3-week-old daughter with me in her car seat in the surgeon's office. He said it healed beautifully. He took out my stitches. And all of a sudden, he's standing right in front of me and he's got this solemn look on his face. And he says, I'm sorry, hon, but you have cancer. You have melanoma. I called the oncologist for you. He's going to call you later. And my world just stopped. uh, like, literally just stopped. Like, I went into complete shock. because all these doctors said it was fine.
Everyone's telling you you're okay. You're there with your 3-week-old baby. And so what a mix of emotions too, because it's like you just brought this like little bundle of joy into the world and you're thinking like this is fine. They're sending it down to be like overly cautious and it's going to be nothing and I'm here just for a follow-up. I need my stitches out and there's really nothing that, I mean, even if you have an inkling that maybe it is, there's literally nothing in the world that can prepare you to hear the words you have cancer. No
Right.
matter what's
And
going on, it's traumatic. But being a brand new mom, you had some other serious things going on in your life too. Um,
yeah, like at that time, my
it's
mom was
overwhelming. It's a
currently
lot to
in
take
the
in.
hospital from surgery complications from her cancer. Um, and my uncle, her brother, had just died the day prior from cancer. I've had other family members that passed away from cancer. And so hearing that I had it and then having to go tell my family was just the most heartbreaking. Like telling my mom was the hardest thing that I've ever and probably will ever do. Like, yeah.
It's you have this tiny bright spot of like welcoming your daughter into the world, into the middle of what feels like layers upon layers upon layers of grief, and they're all tied to cancer.
Yeah. And when my daughter was born, we always said that she was our sunshine for me and my mom. Like, there was a reason she came into the world 2 weeks early. Like, if I would have had my surgery and found out I had cancer while she was still in me, like something bad would have happened. So I was very grateful that she came early by the grace of God and she was healthy. Like, to this day, like, I don't understand how my body was sick and my daughter was perfect. Like, that just, but I'm very grateful. And yeah, she's always been our sunshine for both me and my mom through our cancer battles. So,
Well, and then even though and you're probably thinking, I'm going through this, what if I'm not okay? Like I have this brand new daughter. I'm sure it was also in a way comforting to like have that unconditional love and person to hold and stuff while you're going through it. I know you had like a really intense treatment story. Um, can you share a little bit more about what your stage of your diagnosis was and sort of what your treatment journey looked like also?
yeah. So, my nothing came back as 2C malignant melanoma. Um, I met with an oncologist the day after my follow up, and they were like, "You're so young." I was 27. Uh, they're like, "You're so young, and this happened so fast. We need to get on this. We need to get you tested. We need to take more of a margin, uh, and we need to get you in some immunotherapy." And so, March 28th, I had my biopsy done. So I have my lovely trio on my neck. And March 29th, the following day, I had a wide excision on my upper lip with a cross lip um, reconstruction. I forget like what the, but
Well, we're
so
not
what they,
doctors. That's okay.
right? So what they basically did was, when he originally moved it, he took like a little chunk of my lip. Well, they took like an inch more of my upper lip, completely cut it out to make sure that if anything was there, they got it. And well, because now my lips were so uneven, like my upper lip was going to be so much shorter, they decided that they were going to take part of my bottom lip and relocate it to my upper lip. And because they're operating on my mouth I couldn't be put under. I was awake for the reconstruction. So I'm staring up at my surgeon's face as he's chewing gum and feeling him tug on my mouth. Like, I didn't feel pain, but I could feel him tug and I could taste the blood, uh, which was just so traumatic. And like, bless the nurse that was there holding my hand, because I probably like broke some bones in her hand. Just so traumatic. So I had 2 major surgeries, 2 days back to back. And because they replanted the lip, they actually had to sew my mouth shut, so that the arteries could reconfigure and everything can settle. So for 4 weeks, all I had as an opening was just a small little hole to fit a straw. So a liquid diet for 4 weeks, while I'm continuing to breastfeed my new daughter, which was not easy. And I knew that once I started immunotherapy, I had to give up breastfeeding. So at the same time, I was also pumping like a maniac, trying to store up enough for my daughter. So that was March. April, I was sewn shut, healing. I went into like severe depression. May 3rd, I started immunotherapy. And I very vividly remember nursing my daughter one last time before I left for my appointment. And I got in my car and I just lost it. I was hysterical. Like, that was the day that what I had envisioned motherhood to be changed forever. And I still struggle with that. And
Well,
I,
and I'm
I
not
know
a mom, but I know like there's a lot of people that do breastfeed and feel like there's this really strong bond that's formed through that. And most moms get to choose when they're going to stop breastfeeding. And that
right,
choice was another thing that was taken away from you because of
right.
cancer.
And like that close bond, like that was something that only I could do for my daughter. And those are precious moments that we had. And everybody was just like, you're still going to be able to feed her and it's fine. Like, you'll find your connection. And like, there was just so much pain in being told that I had to stop. That, like, once that first treatment entered my body was toxic to my daughter. And I had some people very close to me make some very rude remarks to me about my decision to go to immunotherapy and give up breastfeeding. But I also had to tell myself, like, I have to survive for my daughter. So that's, as hard as it was, as heartbreaking as it was, like, I had to reduce the chance of melanoma coming back. Like, I had to be here for her. And so, yeah, just
I think a lot of people, and it's hard, and especially when you're going through it, it's really hard to see that a lot of people, they think because they think it's coming from a place of well meaning. And I think just especially people who I know my sister has struggled with this. My sister is a mom and she has a difficult time getting advice from other people because there's so much parenting advice out there. And I think that unless somebody is literally putting their child at harm, there's no right or wrong. It's what's right for you. And as hard as it was to make that decision, you were choosing to be here long term for your daughter. And
Right.
I can't imagine making that decision, but like that's the gift that you were giving her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And the
yourself.
person that made the comment, no judgment on her, but it was just like, I didn't have a choice. Like, I needed to make sure the cancer didn't come back. And they told me, like, I mean, even when I had my PET scans and other things that they did, I went through like 24-hour periods where I had to pump and dump. Like,
Mhm.
there were days in between that like I couldn't even hold my daughter. And like some people just didn't get it. Like, it's not that I don't want to be with my daughter, because I obviously do. Uh,
Mhm.
but I have to make sure that I'm healthy and that I'm around for her in the long term.
I
So,
think
yeah.
I think all of us who have been diagnosed at some point with cancer too, unfortunately, have had somebody tell us whether it's what treatment we should do or how we should feel, or even just some of the like toxic positivity, which what you were sharing earlier sounded a little bit like that. And I think it's okay to recognize that whatever you're feeling is valid, and you have to feel the emotions to work through the emotions and to heal from them. And I mean, taking advice from somebody who hasn't been through it it doesn't make sense. We have to do what's right for us, and only we can know.
Right. So yeah, I started May 3rd immunotherapy. I was on, I don't know if I said nivolumab, one time a month for a year. So that went until April 2019. And then in between that year, I had some minor reconstructions to help soften and flatten the lip, because it just would not soften, it wouldn't settle. And so they were just constantly working on it. And I lost track of how many procedures I had. But July 2019, I had my final reconstruction, um, where I finally came to terms with, like, okay, I guess this is as good as it's going to get. Um, it's always going to look like I have a swollen lip. um, and I struggled with that a lot. Uh, I dealt with a lot of self consciousness, a lot of anxiety, severe depression. Uh, yeah, just it affected my relationships. And just,
It's really hard to love other
yeah,
people when we don't love ourselves, and it's the
right,
scarring and stuff that comes from all of that. I mean, it's so understandable that you would feel a lot of what you felt, because the scars, even though eventually they look better than they do initially, like they don't really go away, and they're constant reminders. And like having something done on your face, like your lips are, it's very visible. And although our face isn't really our identity, it feels like our identity, because that's how people first recognize us. So it
right.
adds,
I like couldn't avoid it. So like everybody I felt was just staring at my lips, and you know it kind of affected my sense of femininity too. Like, I didn't feel attracted to my husband anymore, and he wasn't quite sure how to approach me either. And so I struggled a lot. Um, yeah, but eventually I think it was around 2020 where I found some really positive people who really helped me shift my mindset. And I started to begin the journey of loving my skin again, loving my scars, and kind of figuring out like, well, if I can't avoid it, like if I can't hide my scars, like I might as well, you know, make good out of them. And use them as a conversation starter to help others and hopefully help them prevent going through what I went through. Because, God, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. And last summer, actually, because I finally got to this point where I could share on social, last summer, this girl actually found me on Instagram who had a very similar story to me, who her doctors weren't concerned. And a few weeks after she had her baby, she had a lump removed and it was melanoma. And so we've been kind of staying in touch, and I've been trying my best to, help her through her journey as she's going through treatment currently. And so I keep telling myself, like, there's a reason, like, I'm still here. Like, and like
There are
these
many
scars
reasons that you are
were
still
put where
here.
they are for a reason. So, yeah.
That there are many reasons why you're still here, and it can't be understated how important and helpful it is to have a really strong group of people around you, whether it's just to support you or like help you love yourself when that's not easy to do, and to just not try to like fix you or heal you, but just sit beside you while you figure out how to do that yourself. And then when you also find that community of people that have also gone through it, and now we're not the ones looking for help, but we're the ones that can help others through it, I feel like there's so much healing that comes from it.
Right. Yeah. Uh, and I just want to say, like, if to anybody who's listening, who's finding themselves going through this journey, like, at least for me, and I think for some other people in the community, I can say that, like, don't ever feel like you're burdening us with your questions. Uh, and yeah, it is really hard to think back and relive some of those moments. Uh, but there is a lot of healing in it. And that's what I've kind of gotten through this connection with this girl, is that, I'm realizing some things that I didn't realize in the moment. And I I'm hoping that through that, her journey is a little bit lighter. And I know it's not. I mean, she's got my heart just breaks for her. Uh, but I'm hoping that I can give her a little bit of light and show, and others give them a little bit of light and show that a cancer diagnosis doesn't have to be finite. It doesn't have to be fatal. And that better days can come. And healing is messy. It's never going to be perfect, but like better days will come.
Yeah, they do. And even when we're in the midst of it and it's like the hardest and the lowest parts and the darkest times, it's harder to see, but there's still that joy that peeks through every once in a while. And I know I'm sure you had it with your daughter and finding that community, and by you connecting with that other person who is going through something similar right now, you're taking some of that off of her plate and giving her some of that light, because I think many of us share because we're hoping we can be to somebody the person that we wish we had when we were going through it.
I felt so alone when I was diagnosed and I went through it. And the doctors kept saying, like, this is so weird. You're so young. Like, melanoma only happens to old people. And your
And
mom,
we know
like,
that's
this
not
doesn't
true,
happen.
right?
And as I'm sharing on Instagram and I'm meeting all these other moms, it just, like, blows my mind. Like, it's just, yeah.
And there's so many of us that are being diagnosed in our 20s and early 30s. Melanoma is not an old person's disease. And I think that's one of the great things about being able to bring on other ambassadors and share the stories. I think the stories are so powerful because we're able to see ourselves in each other, and we're able to make it personal while still kind of debunking some of those myths that
Right.
But so the last question that I want to ask for today is, what is the biggest change that you would like to see in regards to melanoma and skin cancer?
I just want more awareness. More awareness of prevention. And, having had my experience with my doctors telling me that I was okay, and also having met other people who have gone through similar situations, I feel like skin checks should be like part of prenatal care. Like, OBGYNs should be more observant of the changes that their patients are going through and speak up, recommend their patients go see a dermatologist, because, yeah, like my OBGYN, one of the ones that told me originally, like, oh, it's just my hormones. After my diagnosis and I went in for an appointment, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry you went through that. I really should have said more. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, expletive? Like, yes,
Yeah.
you should have said more. Um, so yeah, I just more awareness, and I just encourage everybody, but especially women who are going through pregnancy, to be aware of your body, check your skin, know what's changing, and speak up, advocate for yourself, and don't just listen to the doctor because they're the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel something's not right, if you're not getting the relief or the answers that give you peace of mind, you need to get a different opinion. And that's what I should have done. And I kind of smack myself every time I think about it. But, I'm here now just to encourage others to be better advocates for themselves. And yeah, it needs to be skin cancer awareness, like, needs to be more prominent in healthcare. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be talked about more
And I
because
think,
it's just
and I think you're right. There needs to be, especially in prenatal care, more awareness of it too, because although it's true that hormones do create a lot of changes and a lot of weird changes, it doesn't mean that all of those changes are okay. And 100%, if you get an
right.
answer that you are not sure of, get a second opinion, get a third opinion. Like, we deserve that. Like, our lives are that important.
Like, my pregnancy didn't cause my melanoma. Like, I did that to myself through years of sun damage. But it definitely expedited the process. Like, I had that mole for years and it didn't do anything until I was pregnant. So the hormones, and I know there's studies going on right now looking at the connection. Like, there was
Mm-hmm.
definitely a connection in my case, because it grew a lot while I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Melissa, thank you so much for being so open and so vulnerable today. Um, like, you can feel your emotion through the screen, and I know other people will be able to hear it. Like, even if they are listening in their car and hearing it audio only. If people want to learn more about you, hear more about your story, where can they connect and find more about you?
Yeah, well, thank you again for having me. It was an honor to be here. Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram sharing. It's just at Melissa_Kultgen, which we can put in the notes,
Yep, we'll
because
have those
my
in the show notes.
last name is a little weird to spell. But yeah, I'm an open book. So if anybody has questions, like, they can feel free to message me and I'm happy to share.
Awesome. Thank you. We will have that info in the show notes. And thank you again for taking the time. I know some people are going to find so much value in what you had to say today.
Thank you.